Welcome everybody to this training, half-day training that Slovenian Managing Authority has asked EIPA to coordinate for the Slovenian stakeholders. So we're very happy to be here with you and to lead you to get to know better the Charter of Fundamental Rights and to know a little bit better as well how it applies within cohesion policy, and to know better as well the experience so far of other member states of the European Union in implementation of the Charter, and also to know better what kind of practical help you can get from the Commission, what you can get also from the Fundamental Rights Agency from Vienna. There are different tools, different experiences. It's a difficult topic. It's a new topic for the cohesion policy managers, and your situation in Slovenia is not so different than what we have encountered in other managing authorities. So I'm very happy to be conducting and coordinating this training, and let me see if I can move at this stage the slide, Lucrezia. So you can see that, Lucrezia, yes?
Yes.
Correct. So we are a big group. So before we start, a few house rules on Zoom. So it's important to get your full names, so you can either rename yourself or Natasha and Yerneia will also help us to get the names right. We are publishing the list of attendees of the Zoom session, be sending that to Yerneia and Natasha, so it's important for us to know exactly who is connected, and the Zoom tells us how long you're connected and who is connected, so we have to get the names right. We are a big group, so you can, of course, take the floor by raising your digital hand for a question or a comment. That would be very welcome. We have to manage the timing, of course, so we'll be doing that. In the meantime, of course, please unmute yourself so we don't disturb the presentation. You can use the chat function for questions as well, so put it in the chat. We will collect it, the questions, the comments, your thoughts, and we will then be able also to direct the observations, the comments, the questions to the correct experts that will come in. The program that we have prepared to you, and you have received it through Natasha and Yerneia, foresees also some kind of a breakout room where we will be sending you in smaller groups. We will give you a task, some little text and cases, and then use the charter to reflect back on which provision of the charter it reflects to. So there we will break into little groups online. Hopefully it would work fine. And lastly, we will be doing recordings of the session to be sent then to the Slovenian Managing Authority so that you can have the recording of the session. So that's why we're recording the session. So what I will do here in this first presentation, before I hand over to a colleague of the Fundamental Rights Agency, is to give a little bit of context of the Charter within the cohesion policy. So first of all, of course, let me tell that we started also as EIPA not so long time ago, because we started in 2021 basically with a training that we did for the Fundamental Rights Agency in Vienna. Since the Fundamental Rights Agency, as Sanja will come in and explain, has a full activity to support also stakeholders in implementation. But we gave a full briefing to the Fundamental Rights Agency to understand well the complexities of the cohesion policy, the structures, the procedures, the key passages, the project pipeline, so that they could then reflect even better on what kind of practical support and tools could be useful in implementation also for the managing authorities in the member states. So it's not so that at that time we had pulled together a team of experts from Slovakia, from Ireland, but the experience in the charter at the time also from other member states was not so well developed. We had also DG Employment, which is, as you know, the leader in the Commission to push for the charter. So we got started there. But what is important, first of all, to understand from the charter is where it comes from. So it started in the year 2000. We had the European Council in Nice, which had to prepare the enlargement. And in that occasion, the charter was started, and then it became a legal text in 2009. So it's part of the Lisbon Treaty, the Charter of Fundamental Rights. I have an acronym here, CFR. But so that was the start. But within the structural funds, basically, it came much later. So only in 2016, as you know here, we started having a guidance note from the European Commission on how to implement the charter in the structural funds. So it's quite late. You should also know that next to the charter, there are other legal texts that are in parallel that also affect the structural funds. One is the rule of law regulation, which is a different regulation, so a specific regulation. So there we have cases there in Poland and Hungary of non-compliance to the rule of law regulation. And that also impacts the structural funds. What is very important, of course, is the context we are given now in the structural funds with the enabling conditions that we have in the cohesion policy. And we have the charter among the 4 horizontal enabling conditions, HAC, which is applicable currently. The charter not only is in the enabling conditions, so it's a condition for getting payments from the European Commission. It applies to all the specific objectives, and it applies also to all the common provision regulation funds. So not only the RDF, ESF cohesion fund, but the JTF, the Maritime Fishery Fund, the AMIF, the BMVI, and the ISF. All the funds that are mentioned in the common provision regulation are covered by the charter. The charter is also part of the horizontal principles, Article 9 of the common provision regulation, that we call them horizontal principles. Article 15 of the regulation reminds us that you link that to the payment application. So if you don't fulfill the horizontal or the sectorial enabling conditions, you will not be able to receive payments from the European Commission. And the charter is also part of Article 73, selection of projects. So when you select projects in your programs, you need to make sure that they comply to the charter as well. They are consistent with the Charter of Fundamental Rights. So in this slide, you have all the references, the key references in the cohesion policy regulation with the charter. Of course, we have a specific reference in the ESF. So in the ESF regulation, you have even more specificity. So you have a focus of the charter in the immaterial project, training, employment, social project of the ESF. You can see it here, again, repeated. So it's not only in the common provision regulation, but also in the sectorial regulation, we have an additional focus. And you can see here that we can also address complaints directly to the European Commission. So we can bypass member states in a sense and arrive directly to the European Commission to complain if there is a breach of the charter. So that is also possible, and the Commission will take that into account and follow up on this issue. So be attentive to all the references in the regulation in the charter for you. Of course, you need to put the charter in the context of the project pipeline of your programs. You have already done, of course, the preparing of the strategies and the program that's already past because we are already 2025. But now you are helping beneficiary to apply for the funds. You are selecting the projects, implementing the projects, reviewing the projects, monitoring them, and evaluating them. So the charter needs to fit also and to be followed up in all the different steps of the project pipeline. So not only in the application, but throughout the whole project pipeline. So keep in mind this idea of the project pipeline of the structural funds. It's very important that you don't miss one or the other steps. And of course, you need to follow the changes in Slovenian legislation and in the Slovenian application of the legislation. So not only keep up to date with the EU legislation, guidance, and so forth, but also in your own national legislation, how it applies, how it affects every step of the project pipeline. You also could follow an approach to look at the different structures of managing structural funds: managing authority, monitoring committee, audit authority. Each one of these three bodies, and the accounting function as well, carries out specific task procedures which will touch upon the charter rights. Okay, if you look at the list here, you are familiar with the structure, so I don't have to go through that. But each one of these structures, steps, bodies will encroach in some of the charter rights that I put here as a bullets in red below. Whether you are the audit authority, accounting function, you need to think about encroaching, stepping on the rights to protect personal data, respect private and family life, and non-discrimination. If you are in monitoring committee, managing authority in the task you have there, you have to take into account equality, linguistic diversity, and so forth. You see here. So it's very important also to think in terms of your own body, whether you are respecting the Charter of Note. But of course, it's also the beneficiaries themselves who have to respect the Charter. So it's very important that the beneficiaries, public-private beneficiaries who are implementing projects are respecting the Charter. We will be sharing some good practices. We have prepared for you a list of references with the links to different guidances that we have found in different managing authority. There is a guidance from the French managing authority. I'm referring here from 2023. It's in French, but you can understand. So it's a guidance that repeats that the beneficiary, when they request the grants, they need to know that they take account of the Charter and that they will respect the Charter rights. So there is a declaration that they have to sign to know how to respect the Charter. And the same applies if the beneficiary collects data on participants, especially in the ESF, as you see here in the Guide of France. They have a specific point, examples of moments where the ESF beneficiary will need to be very careful how to respect the Charter when they collect data on participants in their projects. So it's very important to do a self-declaration by beneficiaries, to do a self-assessment by beneficiaries in respect of the Charter. And that is what I wanted to share. I have more later on, but this is a little bit of the context I wanted to give you for the cohesion policy. Okay, any comments or questions? We can take them. I can see that Sanya is connected. So welcome, Sanya. So this is a little bit of the context for you in the cohesion policy framework. You can also put comments and questions in the chat as well, of course. Is that, can I have a feedback? Is that okay so far? Yes? Yes, I can see Yerney nodding. Yerney, okay. Don't be shy, and so if you have a question or a comment to put it, we can come back to any of these points later on. So on time, Sanya, we also welcome a colleague, Sanya, from the Fundamental Rights Agency, which I just mentioned a few minutes ago. And Sanya, welcome very much. And we are looking forward to also to your presentation to know more what the FRA agency is doing, what kind of tools could be useful for the Slovenian colleagues. And Sanya can also say a few words in Slovenia, of course, to the group. Thank you very much again, Sanja, for joining. We have half an hour with you according to program, a bit more than until 10 o'clock. So your presentation, and then if there are any questions, we'll take them also alongside. Sanja, we hand over to you.
Thank you, Marko. Good morning, dobro jutro. Lep pozdrav z Agencije Evropske unije za temeljne pravice. Moje ime je Sanja Jovičič in delam kot pravni strokovnjak za listino in pravice invalidov na agenciji. In prezentacija bo sicer v angleščini, ampak lahko na koncu postavite vprašanja tudi v slovenščini. So let's start. The purpose of my presentation is really to present the work of the EU agency on the Charter and give you some ideas, tools, materials to really apply the Charter in your national context. So when you use EU funds. So what is our work on the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights? So we provide assistance and expertise on the Charter to the member states, EU institutions, bodies, and agencies. We contribute to the implementation of the European Commission's Charter strategy, which has, the Commission has planned several actions to really promote the Charter at national level for the next 10 years. We also support the EU and the member states in delivering their legal obligations of the Charter by providing analysis, guidance, training, e-learning, and we also promote awareness about the EU Charter, for example, through our online EU Charter exchange, which we organize in December. Maybe we start with a general overview of the Charter. So the Charter is a very modern instrument. It contains both civil and political rights, but also economic and social rights. You see here there are 7 titles. From dignity, freedoms, equality, solidarity, citizens' rights, justice, and general provisions. So it's really important also to keep in mind that the Charter has also specific rights to the European Union, for example, the right to vote and stand as candidate in the municipal and the European Parliament elections, the right to good administration, access to EU documents. So you do not really have these kind of provisions in other international human rights instruments. Let me show you how you can also find the different Charter articles. Also on our website, we have the Charterpedia. This is really a database which contains information about each Charter article. So you would get there by getting on the FRA website, fra.europa.eu. You click on the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, and let's say you're interested in Article 47, let's say the right to an effective remedy and to a fair trial. And here you would find the text of the Charter, the explanations. The explanations are very important for the interpretation of the Charter. Case law references, both from national courts, the Court of Justice, and the European Court of Human Rights, relevant constitutional law provisions for this Charter article, EU law, international law, and FRA products. It's very important also to understand that the Charter has a scope of application. So the Charter does not apply to all situations, such as the European Convention of Human Rights. It applies only when the EU member states implement EU law. And what does it mean? When do they implement EU law? When they act within the scope of EU law. So you would never be able to apply the Charter on its own. You always have to find a relevant EU law provision, either from the treaty, a regulation, or a directive, and then have also a measure of implementation on national level. This could be, let's say, a legislation of the member state implementing EU law. It could be a decision of the court when a court enforces EU law, or also when the member states deviates from a Charter right, for example, in a case when they need to invoke the public interest to restrict EU fundamental rights. Also, it's important to note that the European Union is not yet party to the European Convention of Human Rights. which means that it has a specific status in EU law. So the convention cannot be applied directly, but there is a provision in the charter, so it's Article 51, paragraph 2, which says that the ECHR should be applied also in EU law when the content and scope of the rights in the ECHR are also correspond to those of the charter. So where will you find this? Usually in the explanations or also the case law of the Court of Justice. But this is very technical here, so it's really just to let you know that there is a specific relationship between the two instruments in EU law. Here is also an overview table where you can see where the Charter articles have an equivalent article also in the European Convention of Human Rights, where is the Charter more extensive, that the ECHR, for example, Article 47 applies to all kinds of proceedings, administrative, for example, asylum proceedings, which is not the case for Article 6 of the European Convention of Human Rights. There are also, as I said, some EU context-specific rights. You see them here marked in blue. So it's good to have this overview of of the Charter specificities of the EU fundamental rights, which are contained in the Charter. As Marcos said, we have a specific obligation for the member states now in the Common Provision Regulation, so Article 15 and Article 9, which requires the member states to respect the EU Charter when they spend money from the 8 funds covered by the Common Provision Regulation. Here I'm saying, so here you have a direct link with EU law. You have Article 15, and probably you would have a decision when you decide to spend, let's say, to spend the money, probably giving the money to a specific project, and then you would have to really check that your action really also respects the Charter. The Common Provision Regulations requires that the member states make arrangements to ensure the effective examination of complaints, so that individuals, private entities can also complain in a way that EU funds are spent, that the funds are spent really in compliance with the EU Charter. And the member states must also establish monitoring committees. So these committees should examine the fulfillment of the enabling conditions throughout the programming period. And this committee should have a balanced representation of the relevant member states authorities and also partners. And these partners include regional, local authorities, economic and social partners, civil society organizations, and national human rights institutions. And as Marco said, the consequence of violation would be that the Commission would not reimburse their expenditure declared by the member state. So here is the danger for the member state that when you finance something which does not comply with the Charter, you would not get then it paid from the European Commission. And as I said, the horizontal enabling condition must remain fulfilled throughout the entire programming period. And it covers all EU Charter provisions, including the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, to which the European Union is also a party. At FRA, we have done a lot of research on national implementation of the Common Provision Regulations. We focused specifically on the national human rights institutions and civil society organizations' participation in the monitoring committees. We've also discussed with EU and national officials, and we carried out specific projects in selected member states of Bulgaria, Croatia, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, and Portugal, but including also Slovenia. And we've published also a report on how to ensure compliance with fundamental rights in EU funds. And we've been reporting about how the member states have been implementing the Common Provision Regulation also in our Fundamental Rights Report Charter chapter. Since 2023, we started organizing an online forum, which is targeting different practitioners. And one of the recurring topics is also the horizontal enabling condition in the Charter, I've put the links there. You can find the presentations from the speakers and also the video recordings of the specific session.
Sanja, can you
Yeah.
go back to the previous slide, just to clarify to everybody who may be not familiar with all the acronyms, what do you include in NHRI? So what kind of
yeah,
bodies?
sorry, this is the abbreviation for National Human Rights Institutions and Equality Bodies. So for in Slovenia this would be the ombudsman or the equality body. So here we include actually the national monitoring human rights institutions.
Appointed in each member state.
Yes, and CSOs are civil society organizations. And here we also understand it very broadly. So not only NGOs, organizations of people with disabilities, but also associations of lawyers, for example, associations of judges, associations of companies, and other private individuals. So it's a very broad term that we use here. So why is this important that you should make sure that the funds really respect the charter? So there have been reports from civil society organizations in the past where the public funds were used actually to violate people's rights. You see here on these slides, for example, a picture from an institution in Hungary where children were with disabilities were held in deplorable conditions. They were used straitjackets, they were locked to beds. Their health was very, very bad, and there were many complaints which then came to national courts, and thankfully the national courts also remedied the situation. Another photo just below, it's from the Paris Supreme Court new building, which was built and apparently without considering accessibility for people with disabilities. So there have been many complaints, for example, from lawyers with disabilities who could not access the building. Here, it's very important. It would have been very important to include organizations of people with disabilities when deciding on the construction technical specifications for the procurement of this building. And another report, how public funds are being used to build schools for segregation of Roma pupils. This is really not in compliance even with the European Convention of Human Rights, where the European Court of Human Rights has noted in many cases that this is a violation of the convention. We also heard of cases where the EU funds were used for excessive data collection by passenger record systems or for mass surveillance of migration. So these are just some concrete examples to pay particular attention when you decide to fund a specific activity. And what are our key findings and opinions with regard to the horizontal enabling conditions? So we found that there is really limited and meaningful engagement of civil society, national human rights institutions, equality bodies throughout the programming period. And for this, we encourage the active participation at all stages of the programming period of these stakeholders. We also found that they have a limited scope for involvement in the evaluations because there is a technical nature of the work, and these stakeholders do not have really the capacity and the resources to also participate in the monitoring of the charter compliance. So here we recommend to ensure more capacity and resources for the national human rights institutions and civil society to conduct monitoring. There have been also reports of conflicts of interest for example, ombuds institutions. Here we recommend to facilitate meaningful participation in the monitoring committees. And really it's up to these bodies to decide whether they want to participate or not. So you should not really force them to do so. We also found a lack of clear indicator frameworks to evaluate fundamental rights issues in the programming phase. That's why we recommend the member states to ensure periodic evaluations of fundamental rights issues during the EU funds implementation, to ensure proper use of indicators and evaluations. And we also found that there is that the training on fundamental rights should be improved in particular at local and regional levels for the managing authorities and the beneficiaries. We also recommend that it would be good to have a fundamental rights focal point with the managing authority, so a person who could have the expertise of fundamental rights and who could advise the managing authorities in a specific case. And it's also important to consult the national human rights institutions. We also noted a lack of knowledge of the roles, responsibilities, and competencies of other actors and institutions involved. And there is also a problem with complaints mechanisms, which are often inaccessible, insufficiently advertised to the relevant stakeholders and the wider public. It's really difficult to obtain a binding decision. There is a lack of coordination between various bodies involved. And the national complaints mechanisms appear insufficiently independent and they lack fundamental rights expertise. We therefore recommend to ensure that the relevant information on both complaints bodies and the charter arrangements are available and a dedicated website is created for this purpose. So member states have to ensure that the relevant bodies have fundamental rights expertise and they ensure an independent review. And here I would like to present some promising practices that have been collecting in the member state with regard to the common provision regulation and the horizontal enabling condition. For example, in France, people who have an interest in the border management and visa instrument or the Asylum and Migration Integration Fund, they can report breaches of the charter either online, by post to the ethics officer of the Ministry of Interior or the French Defender of Rights. So here we see like a wide range of possibilities for individuals to complain. In Denmark, they have adopted very specific guidelines for the managing authorities where they require that for example, absolute rights such as torture, slavery, and forced labor, when the funding would imply the breach of those absolute rights, that the activity cost will not be reimbursed. So it's also, there are also specific information for the caseworker where they are reminded to reassess the compliance with the horizontal enabling condition before making payment to the project.
Tanya, a question, maybe it's good to clarify to all participants, because you have presented all the articles of the Charter. Among them, since I see here absolute rights, among the articles of the Charter, are there some different rights where, like, for example, torture, slavery, forced labor, you have a different, let's say, importance because they're absolute, and other rights might be limited for some reasons. So can you explain to the participants this point? I think it's important.
Yes, so in human rights law, apologies if I get very technical here. So you have a distinction between absolute rights, which you can never violate. For example, the prohibition of torture, inhuman and degrading treatment. The member states can never argue that such violation would be justified. But then you have other rights which could be limited. For example, the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. So the member states might have a public interest to limit those rights. And you would find this, for example, in the text of the relevant article, where there would be a specific second paragraph saying that this right may be limited in specific cases. But for absolute rights, as I said, this applies, for example, the prohibition of torture, slavery, forced labor, the right to life. It's also an absolute right. So where would you find this? It's usually in the case law of the European Court of Human Rights, but you can find this also in the explanations of the Charter. It's also mentioned there.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's an important point to get to know better the different rights in the Charter. Thank you.
Yes, and maybe something which is also important for a charter, which is different than in other human rights instruments, and this is the distinction between rights and principles. So in the charter, you have provisions which are clear and unconditional and give rise to individual claims. So the individuals would be able to invoke that provision before a national court, and a national court could find a violation of the charter provision. This kind of provision is Article 10, for example. You see there is a very clear text. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience of religion. So this is a clear text giving a right to persons. But then you have also a provision, for example, on the integration of people with disabilities. The Union recognizes and respects the right of persons with disabilities to benefit from measures designated to ensure their independence and so on. So this is not a right, this is a principle. What does it mean? That it cannot be invoked by the individuals before national courts, but it's used in interpretation of the EU law. And it also must be considered in the policy work, in the policy actions of the European Union and the member states. And why there was introduced such a distinction is because the United Kingdom, when drafting the charter, didn't want economic and social rights to be included in the charter. And they found a kind of a compromise that they would sign off the charter only if this kind of distinction was made between rights and principles in the charter. Here is another example of guidelines from Latvia, which explain how to assess the impact of objectives and actions of the funds on the charter. For example, Article 20, equality before the law, non-discrimination, equality between men and women, and Article 26, integration of persons with disabilities. And they also give concrete examples with respect to each relevant fund. The guidelines also provide recommendations for actions to promote. So this is not we really see often, really actions to promote also fundamental rights. So this is also important for you to consider whether not only they prevent violations, but also promote the rights of individuals. And the guidelines also suggest a methodology for evaluating the charter compliance with individual project applications. We found a very good example in Poland where the Human Rights Commissioner, that's the National Human Rights Institution, found that there might be an issue of discrimination when financing agriculture. So from the Agriculture and Development Rural Affairs Ministry, so the ministry decided to fund only farmers in a family, let's say farmers who are married, excluding single farmers. And the commissioner pointed out that there is no valid justification for a distinction between married and single farmers. And after hearing the commissioner, the minister decided then to fund all farmers, not only those in a family community. We also found a very good tool from the Hungarian Helsinki Committee. It's called the scrollitaring tool. This is really presenting infographics, animations, text to explain the frozen EU funds for Hungary for a violation of fundamental rights. I think it's a very good tool to really explain to individuals how the EU funding works and what can happen when fundamental rights are violated. And here I move to the relevant material and tools that have been developed by the EU agency and which can help you in your daily work. So we have prepared country sheets for every member state, which are also available in the national language. Here you have the country sheet for Slovenia. In this sheet, which is a very short document of maximum 10 pages, you get the examples of the charter used for the specific state, constitutional role relevance, links to national case law, which has a direct reference to the charter, and the charter added value. We also developed a handbook on the application of the charter. It's, again, a very short document available also in Slovene. It's based on the case law of the Court of Justice. There's a checklist for the applicability of the Charter. So if you wonder whether the Charter applies to a specific case, here are some steps that you can look at to see whether it applies to a specific case. And as I said, it's available in all EU languages except Maltese and Gaelic. We have also developed a case studies trainer's manual. So this is also a document which contains 8 practical case studies, which can be used also for further training. It's mostly addressed to legal practitioners, but it can be also adapted for non-legal audiences. And this document is also available in Slovene. We have also developed an e-learning course, which contains an e-guidance. It's really 10 concrete examples of when the Charter would apply. There are Charter videos, the trainer's area, and it's available in all EU languages. If you would like to try it out, here is a username and a password for you. But if you would like to have more, let's say, to access the whole e-learning course, we would need a name, surname, and an email. And if you do not access the course within 6 months, your personal data is automatically deleted. So I provided the link in my slide to the course, and here I'm just demonstrating how it looks like when you log in. So this is the Charter e-guidance. Here we would have a set of questions which would guide you through the application of the Charter. For example, the first question is there a link to EU law? And depending on your answer, you would get some explanations, including references from the case law of the Court of Justice. As the Charterpedia, I already presented it a moment ago. We keep updating it yearly with national case law. So the 2024 case law is already included, and soon we will also include case law on the rule of law application and the Charter. Maybe not really relevant to you, but if there is some lawyers among the audience, the Charterpedia is connected to the case law database. It basically feeds with the same data from the Charterpedia, but it allows you to do a more refined search by Charter article, deciding body, countries, and the keyword search.
On this, Sanja, on the previous slide, I did myself a check of there are 1,700 cases, I think, and I checked how many are in Slovenia. So to compare Slovenia, I found 25 in Slovenia, and I compared it to other countries which have more or less the same population as Slovenia, and I found completely in line with the other countries. So if you look at Slovenia, there is so it's within the average of cases in Slovenia, correct? 25. I found 22 in Croatia and 28 in Lithuania, Latvia, which have more or less the same population. So nothing surprising, no, in this number of case laws. Or do you have other angles to look at this?
No, that's how we also see the situation. There is a stable reference to the Charter, and maybe since we are already there, how it looks like. So I've done the search for Slovenia, and I found a case, for example, from the National Supreme Court. Here you find some key facts of the case, the key legal questions raised by the court, and the outcome of the case. You have the paragraphs referring to the Charter in English and also in the national language. And if you want to check the case, you click on this icon, View Full Case, and you would be redirected to the decision of the National Court. Yeah, we have also a Charter app. If you would like to have access to the Charterpedia on your mobile phone, it works both for Android and iPhones. And as I mentioned, we have this annual EU Charter exchange, which is really open to everyone. It's online, and it will happen this year on 8 to 9 December. This is an event co-organized with the European Commission, where we really try to discuss the application of the Charter at national level. And this year it will be linked to the 25th anniversary since the proclamation of the Charter. There will be specific sessions including on EU funds. You see here a photo from last year's session. We had a session on the EU accession to the European Convention of Human Rights with top speakers. So the registrar from the European Court of Human Rights, Johan Callawert, and the principal European Commission negotiator to the Council of Europe, Alex Ronkes, and our colleague Siobhan, who was moderating the session. And maybe to mention here that we also plan a high-level conference ahead of the anniversary together with the Danish presidency and the European Commission right after the charter. It will probably happen on 10-11 December, so in Brussels, but it will be also live streamed. More information will follow soon. And speaking of the anniversary, here is our timeline of activities this year. So we have trainings together with the European Judicial Training Network on the Charter for the members of the judiciary, so judges, prosecutors, court staff. We have a Charter expert meeting on 26 March. So if you consider yourself a Charter expert, you can write to our functional email and be included also in these meetings. We also inform the Charter experts of relevant Charter developments at EU level and national level through a newsletter. We will publish our fundamental rights report in June with the Charter chapter. We plan to translate the Charter articles into international sign language, and we really invite then the member states to do so after also in the national sign language. We will have a specific report published this year on human rights impact assessment of legislation, so how the member states consider fundamental human rights when legislating, and also after the legislation is adopted, so in the evaluation of legislation. As I said, we also have our 3rd annual Charter exchange and the high-level conference together with the Danish presidency of the European Commission. If you are interested in the interplay between the Charter and the European Convention of Human Rights, we have developed together with the Council of Europe an online course, which is available also in Slovene. I think it takes about 8 hours to complete, and it's very useful to understand how the two systems interrelate and how you should apply them. For all printed materials, we can also send them free of charge to the national authorities, to interested parties. So if you're really interested in some documents that we publish, we can also send them to you. This is all from my side, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Sanja. It's an impressive work from FRA agency, the range of tools that you have put in place quite rapidly and quickly for we cannot hear you. You have to unmute.
Now you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's okay. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy I can be here, and Marco for inviting me. I prepared some presentation about our work. So for first, my name is Dagmar Literova. I'm director for State Department for Horizontal Principles. Maybe you see my presentation?
Not yet. You have to click on share. So in the meantime, Lucrezia will be ready, but if you can share your screen, Dagmar. So
Marco, maybe stop sharing the program.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Can you share?
It's a moment. 1 moment. Like all time problem with IT for me. So moment share.
You have a green arrow at the bottom.
Yes, yeah. I have it. Share.
Yes.
It's okay now?
It's coming up and we can see it. Yes, no problem.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so I start. So Okay, so our department is independent department for special focal points for implementation and handling conditions and horizontal principles. In Operation Multi-Found, then called Program Slovakia, the body that ensure the application of horizontal principle in the programming period in 2021 and 27. Oh, okay. Not now. Second.
You have to jump to slide number 4. Yes.
Okay, I heard.
You can also put in presentation mode. Yes.
Yes. Slowly, but I have it. Okay, so we have the role of the
on which slide are you, Dagmar? Because we are still on our side. We can see only the first slide. And,
your screen sharing.
We don't see the presentation mode. We see the PowerPoint.
Okay. Maybe Dagmar, is it okay if Lucrezia will share the screen for you?
Perfect.
Yes. Okay, Lucrezia,
Thank
right.
you.
Yes.
Okay, you can close it. You can close it, Dagmar, and Lucrezia will
I
take
stop
over.
sharing. Yes.
Yes.
I stop
No
sharing.
problem. Lucrezia is ready. She will share.
She is younger and skiller like me. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay.
Okay, so once more about this, yes, here in this slide about this body of horizontal principles. So once more, this role of this department is define the conditions for granting support in relation to ensuring the application of horizontal principles and method of their verification by affidavit and description of this activity and application, which are binding for managing authority or intermediate bodies. What we have other entities, they are involved in implementation process of EU funds. All the staff in this department is only 13 plus one my assistant. She's a student, and 3 external staff. They are experts for architecture. So they have a cumulative function as manager due to the cross-cutting theme horizontal principles. The role of the gestor is provide methodologic guidance to the entities involved in this implementation process. Second slide, please. Yes. So next slide, please, Lucrezia. Thank you. This methodologic guidance interview in the process have few parts, like we are included in the managements, like we are separate section for horizontal principles in management documentation. In implementation, we have a lot of trainings and consultation for all bodies and the people they ask for funding. And for example, monitoring, this is my part, it's other data, and evaluation, for example, where we have self-assessment at program level, special and control, where we start now make some free documents, like step-by-step for this controller. We will have free controls, 3 types of controls, because we want to try make sure that all projects are non-discriminated. They don't discriminate. Thank you. This next slide. We have a mandatory part. This is very important in this programming period. We have mandatory part of all existing committees and commissions as a full member for the preparation and implementation of programs under EU funds. The activities implemented to ensure the implementation of horizontal principles are financing by technical assistance, and we are implemented as a disqualification, a general criteria. That means is the first criteria what they need make it's okay. When not, bye-bye, no way. So we must show compliance with EU funds, EU Charter and UN Convention. If the activity is not compliance with Charter or Convention, that simply means it's not eligible for funding. So in Slovakia, the Department of EIPA ensure together fulfillment of enabling condition of Charter and Convention. So I have for you one small build or pictures. You can see how we select the projects. For first is from EU Chart. It's mostly a soft project, but you can see it's about learning, education, finding job or profession, about the people, about this all parts of chart. But one from this all chart, it's like a bridge to the EU Convention. It's about investment projects for Slovakia program. And on these next slides, you can see we have not only one part of this is, for example, this is article from EU Chart, where we can see this EU Convention is like the same type, or it's most concretely speaking about the part of chart, because we see in Slovakia that the last period we have more project, or we depend on the gender mainstreaming, on equal opportunities, these soft projects. But the people with disability have not so much place for a free life. For example, in Slovakia, we have only 4% from 100 about the people with disabilities, but it's this higher level of disability. We all here, for example, when we wear glasses, have disabilities. So people with smaller something what is wrong have a disability. I have, for example, all-time problem with the lift. When I don't see where I go out, when this lift don't speak, I'm blind. So this is all-time the problem, and that's why we are very concrete in this programming period, and we push on this article of 26, because it's very close with UN Convention. So that's why we have a more attention of this I think I don't need you speak about what does mean. Can we go in other slide? This next slide, thank you. This next slide speak about this, how we select this investment project, because from this experience from the last period, we know people in Slovakia have all in paper. When you don't have some law on paper, it's only speaking, it's not really, and they need to have international or on national law very strict and directly. That is a typical Slovakian. You need all from the top to the down very concretely. When is there not? We are a lawyer and we know how we can go out from this. So that's why I see we have a law about the building from 1976. Yes, once more, 1976. This actualization of this was in 2015, and today is 14. Tomorrow we start with new law about the building. It's very crazy because you see we have very old law, and this mean this EU convention, this part 9, what we looking for, it's not possible complete. So we start in structural farm something new. It's in investment project we have major projects and small projects. Major projects are like cohesion funds have this building, they need a lot of money, like and a lot of years in my country. For example, the highway or some bridges and so on. And this small build a small projects, that mean schools, some social infrastructure, or a building for health, for some hospitals or something. So this means small. Can I go back on one slide? Thank you. This yes, thank you. Stop. That means in a major project, these big projects, we have one system, but I try 8 years and it's very, very good, is a preliminary expert assessment system. That means before this big organization, they have railway or something, they need start with some project. Before, when they start with this, they take in my department this project documentation, and we control this before. It is because when I control this project documentation after this all stuff, so that's they need to pay a lot for change. So it's better for me too, because they can change when there's something wrong. So we have a railway station, bus station, some big buildings in with my sign, and that means this project is non-discrimination. And on these offices with it's very, very morning for me. They put this project in next level, they know that it's okay, it's not discrimination. They don't need looking for some barriers. So this free expert what I have, they are very high professor in the technical schools. They know about the universal system and the free barrier system. So they teach about this. So they need be my left and right hand in this.
Dagmar, a question. Between small and major projects, you have a difference in size of the project, in the budget. Is there a threshold?
It's not only budget. It's very important. We have definition about what kind of project need this preliminary expert assessment, because it's mostly project for transport. Because they need the big projects, big money, and they have other system for control and implementation. They start with project, not with the call for proposal.
Okay,
yes,
thanks.
So this is this difference. And small projects have a checklist. We have a checklist too. Checklist for barrier-free accessibility. In this checklist, it's a lot of things from, it's like a puzzle from all existing law in Slovakia, what they need to do when they want make reconstruction for old building, or where they start with new building on the green place, or when they change some room in the school, for example. It's not only room, it's a door and this place when you need to go, because people need a wheelchair, so they need more place, for example. So we work a lot with organization, they work for people with disabilities, and my new colleague, she have disability very big, she don't hurt, and we know we need start with online, for example, with captures. And Zoom is perfect, but the webinar is not good. WebEx, it's not good. They have done good captures.
Thank you, Dagmar. I'm conscious also about the timing of, so
yes,
we need to move on to the next slide, because we have still some slides, and I would like also to leave
yes,
time for some question and interaction.
Yeah, we will be very quickly. Here is only small presentation about what we learn people when we speak with them. That is, it's not only about disabilities, what you see. It's about the disability, what they people have when you don't see, for example. It's about the barrier-free approaching and universal design. So thank you. Next slide, please. And here are monitoring tools. It's only special for Slovakia for gesture of horizontal principles. Here is the only information about this, that it's not a measurable indicator, because when you have measurable indicators in project, you need to have this target, this yes, target of this indicator, but these other data are only statistic indicators. That means we don't need heard or see a lot of fairy tales in monitoring this information. We need special this true about this, how this project work. We speak about a set of 5 indicators. We have this list of measurable project, indicator of data, There are a lot of rules for this data. Can we have a next slide, Lucrezia? Thank you. Yeah, we can have here a characteristic of other data. When you want more information, you can send me email and I can say to you a lot of things about this, because this is for one big presentation what we have. There is information about the statistic data, what is in real time, because we have a system, monitoring system for a project. So we can see every time, but we look at this only once in 1 year, because it's better you have more information. But when you need in this time, how many projects start and how is this gender salary gap in Slovakia, we can see it. So we can go these other slides. And in these other slides, it's 5 slides. You can see the name of this data. It's very important. This all project must have this data in. It's possible when you see there is a number, for example, number of identified barriers. It's when you start with some project, you must know how many barriers you have. And this second is how many barriers you remove from this project. So you can see what you do between in implementation. This last like average gross monthly salary and median are very important for gender equality, because we know in Slovakia we have a more like 20, it was more like 20% gender salary gap. Now, maybe 4 or 5 years, we have only 18, because all people, they work or have a project from EU. Now, here is the gesture of horizontal principle, and we for us, it's very important control this information. And only one, this in middle, it's a number of tools. They ensuring accessibility for people with disabilities. This is close with a communication strategy. We have in all project we need to have some information about communication. You need the flag, you need the type of writing, and this is tools for ensuring accessibility for people. With this number, I know how many projects we have, because all projects must need this. And thank you. This is only these last slides are only about this concretely information about this data. Is the first. Then is the second is a number about disabilities or convention. Please, Lucrezia, thank you.
We can go to a close, Dagmar. I have some questions also for you before we close. So is there any of the other slides which we can go to a close, Dagmar? Yes, or yes? Okay.
Yes.
Lucrezia, you can put maybe the last, the presentation is available with all the different steps of the monitoring system that Dagmar presented. It's quite extensive. Dagmar, thank you very much. I have maybe 2 questions that would be useful for the participants to know a little bit more about. You're in direct contact with the Commission, with the DG Regio, DG Employment.
Yes.
So can you share with the participants just very briefly the kind of support or input or feedback that the Commission gives to these topics?
Yes, for me it's very important, and I'm very happy I can speak with the people in the DG Empl and DG Regio. We have, before we start this programming period, very close partnership because before this period we start with the system like this system monitoring system for disabilities, for this looking like it from chart to this investment project is something special. And for Gester horizontal principles in this time and today too, it's very important that people from these DGs looking for us, for our steps all time, and they are like my partners. When I have a problem in Slovakia, make something. It's like a longer hand for me because you know this tema, it's not very modern for people. They don't like see you looking for him for his money. What you do? But we are here because we want make equality or this justice in giving the money in this financing. And they looking for us when they are member. Oh, you ask, they are member, for example, in all our committees.
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. So a good interaction with the Commission, DG Regio, DG Employment is essential. Another question maybe as well for the participant interesting, Dagmar. Slovakia, probably also Slovenia, has a big Roma population. So can you share with the participants maybe a few the cases very briefly on Roma population?
Okay. For first, I'm from this community too. So it's my pleasure speak about this community. I know it's a lot of problems for people they live in settlements, because I don't speak about the people they are out. I want to speak about the people from settlements. They are in very wrong situation. They have in Slovakia not they don't own this land or building. They have a wrong education, and they don't have so good work. For example, we have one case. We have one small town. It's very close with Ukraine and Hungary, and in this end, in this. And there is a lot of Roma people in one big place in the of town. It's like it's included in town, but is excluded from the center. So it's like marginalized. And these people have their school for children, but I don't know how it say. These children don't have education, half in the morning and half in the evening. It's two time in the day. They don't have a place for some free time. They, for example, in the first class, you see these children must be there with students and socialize together. But these children are only in one building together, maybe 400 or 500 children. And town or city, no, they need a new building for these children, but because we have in Slovakia infringement in education because of this. But this city start with the new building for the school, but in this settlement. And this is discrimination because we make a bigger ghetto.
Okay, yes. So it's about the location of the project,
yes,
of the school within the settlement that would mean more discrimination, more gap, more distance.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very interesting case. I'm sure it resonates also in Slovenia. I'm sure you probably have some settlements as well in Slovenia. So you have to be careful, as Dagmar said. School infrastructures very good, but where is the location
Place,
important?
yes.
The place, correct.
Because when we have the same problem with the Roma people, we have in Slovakia one system, we call it 3D, like 3D. It's a desegregation, deghettoization, and destigmatization. So it's a 3D. It's about Roma, and we're looking for it in all projects what we control when we want some money for this community.
Thank you very much, Dagmar, for this last
My
point.
pleasure.
Hello, everybody. My name is Raluca Pirtea. I am the communication officer for the West Regional Program from the West RDA of Romania. And today I will present you how the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights is applied and implemented at the level of the program, how we ensure that the principles regarding equal opportunities, non-discrimination, and accessibility are integrated in the projects we finance, and also what support we provide to the beneficiaries. I am together with my colleagues, Amelia Dumitrescu, our expert in horizontal principles, and Cosmina Dela, you know already, the head of Irregularity Office. For sure, gender equality, non-discrimination, and accessibility are fundamental principles of modern democracies and essential objectives for sustainable development. Romania has aligned itself with European and international standards and adopted a series of laws and policies aimed at eliminating discrimination and promoting these principles. But like other regions of Romania, in the West region, there is still space for improvement, especially in terms of equal access to public spaces, for example. But through the program we manage, we commit to ensure that the European and Romanian legislation are put into practice by our beneficiaries. But let's start with a little bit of context. I will tell you a few words about our institution and the EU program we manage. So we are the West Regional Development Agency from Romania, which is a non-governmental, non-profit public utility organization that has been supporting the development and promotion of the region through European funding programs for over 25 years. We have a team of over 200 experienced professionals and highly skilled experts. Starting with the 2021 to 2027 funding period, we have been designated for the first time as the managing authority for the West Regional Program. Next slide, please. The program is the first regional program and the main funding instrument for fostering economic growth, sustainable development, and improved quality of life in the West region. The program has a total funding of 1.2 billion euros allocated across 7 investment priorities. You see the priorities here on the slide. We fund innovation, digitalization, and competitivity, smart city, energy efficiency and green spaces, urban sustainable mobility, road infrastructure, education, tourism, urban regeneration, and heritage. Next slide, please. Regarding our today's topic, the compliance with the principles and provisions of the EU Charter has to be assumed in Romania by all bodies involved in the management of EU funds. We talk about the Ministry of Investments and European Project, the managing authorities, audit authorities, monitoring committees, working group, and of course, the beneficiaries. Next slide, please. The body which monitors the application of the principles is the Committee of EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, coordinated by the Ministry of Investments and European Projects. So we as managing authority don't have this responsibility, but we are part of the committee. The committee itself is responsible for identifying and reporting non-compliances issues and providing support and recommendations on the application of the Charter. The committee includes representatives, as I said, from the managing authorities, relevant structures within the Ministry of Investments and European Projects, the Ministry of Finance, and the institution responsible for human rights protection. More information about this committee is on the ministry's website. They have also a contact email that is on this slide. The West Regional Programme is aligned with the principles set out in the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights and ensures that gender equality, non-discrimination and accessibility are promoted in the objectives of the regional programme. Therefore, funded projects must demonstrate that they promote inclusion and equal access for all citizens. We evaluate how projects align, as I said, with fundamental rights, with equal opportunities, non-discrimination, and accessibility to services, spaces, information, and infrastructure. Next slide, please. Let's see what the applicants have to ensure. They have to conform with European and national provisions through a signed declaration submitted with their funding application. They also have to describe in the application form clear measures or actions that will be implemented to promote these principles. And they also have to provide supporting documents in the final progress report demonstrating the implementation of these measures. Next slide, please. Our equal opportunities experts check if the projects integrate measures for equal opportunities and non-discrimination in accordance with the national and EU regulation, and if the projects include facilities or infrastructure adaptations for people with disabilities. Let's see on the next slide what are the mandatory measures for beneficiaries regarding equal opportunities. So they have to include in internal regulations a provision prohibiting gender discrimination. They have to ensure employees that are informed about the rights related to gender equality. And of course, they have to provide maternity protection for female employees. We have also some recommendations for our beneficiaries, like they have to assign, they can assign an employee responsible for gender equality or to hire an expert to develop strategies or action plans or to organize awareness-raising events on gender equality. Regarding non-discrimination, on the next slide, we have some mandatory measures for beneficiaries. For example, they have to maintain a workplace free from moral harassment, to implement measures to prevent discrimination, to mediate and resolve discrimination-related conflicts, to provide support and assistance in case of harassments. They have to promote legal provisions on equal opportunities and anti-discrimination. And we have also some recommendations for them in terms of non-discrimination, similar to equal opportunities principles, to assign an employee responsible for non-discrimination and to hire an expert. They can develop institutional policies and strategies on this topic, and to inform employees about non-discrimination policies and measures. The third principle I will talk about is the accessibility. The mandatory measures that the beneficiaries have to implement are to ensure access for persons with disabilities to public buildings, transport, and public spaces, to provide access to heritage sites, tourism, sports, and leisure facilities, to acquire adapted public transport vehicles, to include representatives of disability NGOs in construction reception committees, and to approve construction permits for public utility buildings only if accessibility standards are met. I will give you some examples what we check at projects. For example, in an urban development project, we check whether the pedestrian space, for example, is adapted for visually impaired individuals, and whether pedestrian crossings have auditory signals for people with hearing impairments. We have financed project with the playgrounds adapted for children with disabilities. Another example is in a mobility project, we check whether transport vehicles have ramps. We also finance projects involving adapted e-ticketing systems. For education-related projects, we check whether there are ramps or whether the furniture is adapted for students with disabilities. We also have an accessibility checklist for constructions with the legislation and a set of regulations, and the beneficiaries can refer to this when planning to adapt a physical space to ensure that they have completed the necessary adjustments. We have established a guideline with best practices which outlines how to incorporate these principles of equal opportunities, accessibility, and non-discrimination into project. It includes guidance on creating accessible historic monuments, in designing inclusive urban public spaces, in development of accessible and inclusive websites, in producing accessible information materials, and in organizing inclusive public events. Let's see what support we offer to our beneficiaries. First of all, we established an annex to the applications guide, which is a methodology for ensuring the compliance with these horizontal principles. In this methodology, we presented the legislative framework, we presented the principles, so everybody knows what they are. We present information regarding the completion of the declaration of on own responsibility and how to write the sections in the funding application. So we introduced everything that I presented, the mandatory activities and the recommendations in this methodology that is an annex to the application guide. We have established also best practice guidelines with examples and recommendations. And as a support for beneficiaries, we establish also an annex regarding compliance with climate change immunization and do no significant harm, the DNSH. Yes, and I wanted also to mention that we organize a lot of courses and trainings for our beneficiaries regarding these topics. For example, last year we organized trainings for over 200 beneficiaries on this thematic. So thank you very much. This was my presentations. If you have any questions, me or my colleagues can answer you.
Ok, grazie, grazie a tutti. Mi dispiace comunque non poter parlare direttamente in inglese, perché la mia conoscenza, insomma, non mi dà la possibilità di poter sostenere appunto questo intervento. Quindi ringrazio appunto Marco per la traduzione.
So Salvatore apologize, he's not so fluent in English, so he prefers to speak in his own language. I will be translating step by step the presentation, which is in English, that we have translated, so that will help for sure.
Bene, mi presento, sono Salvatore Segreto, lavoro per la Regione Lazio e nello specifico mi occupo di formazione professionale e lavoro.
So Salvatore works in the region of Lazio. He's in charge of the topic of training and employment in the Regione Lazio.
Ok. Con me c'è anche il collega Paolo Calbucci, è un esperto di fondi dell'Unione Europea, sia Fondo Sociale Europeo sia FSE che FESR, e supporta la cabina di regia della Regione Lazio.
So together with Salvatore, we have also Paolo Calbucci is online here, and Paolo is an expert. He follows let's say the monitoring coordinating body in Regione Lazio, both on the ESF part and also on the ERDF part.
Collabora anche con il punto di contatto per il rispetto della carta.
So Paolo is also cooperating together with the contact point for the charter, which Salvatore will explain how it works now.
Ok, prima di entrare nel vivo della discussione, voglio dire che ho ascoltato con molto interesse le criticità illustrate.
So Salvatore listened very carefully on all the issues presented so far.
E alcune di queste sono molto simili a criticità italiane, specialmente quelle riferite alle persone con disabilità.
And they are very similar to the cases he has in Regione Lazio in Italy on disabilities, yes.
Devo dire che l'Italia, sapete che comunque la velocità di realizzazione dei progetti e di inserimento lavorativo, il pubblico lavora con velocità differente rispetto ai privati.
So in Italy, the public works go quite slow, and private operators are faster in implementing activities, provisions.
Per quanto riguarda l'inserimento anche lavorativo, le condizioni di lavoro delle persone con disabilità, invece il pubblico ora è più avanti rispetto al privato.
So on employing people with disabilities, actually the public sector in Italy is faster than the private sector and does better achievement of results. Yes.
Proprio per questo motivo sono stati identificati dei disability manager che operano all'interno delle varie strutture pubbliche.
So every public entity in Italy has a disability contact points that facilitate this.
Ok, dove praticamente si cerca di utilizzare degli accomodamenti ragionevoli per far sì che la persona con disabilità possa esprimere sempre il massimo per la realizzazione del suo lavoro.
So in these contact points try to ensure that workers in public sector that have disabilities can resolve all their issues and be optimal in their work.
Bene, fatta questa premessa, entriamo nel vivo appunto del punto di contatto, quindi spiegherò il punto di contatto e le azioni che fa il punto di contatto diciamo, nello Stato Italia, nello Stato membro Italia.
So Salvatore will explain this modality in Italy of the point of contact on the charter.
Ok, diciamo che gli aspetti definiti dall'Italia nel rispetto della Carta, nell'attuazione dei fondi 21-27, sono stati definiti in collaborazione con la Commissione europea.
So these provisions were negotiated with the Commission in the agreement with Italy, in the partnership agreement.
Ed è stato proprio definito che il rispetto della Carta sia assicurata per tutti i progetti di formazione e per tutti quei progetti che diano inclusione lavorativa.
And the charter needed to be respected for all projects that foresee inclusion of work and employment training projects.
Questa conformità alla Carta deve essere garantita non solo in fase di programmazione, sia del programma ma anche degli avvisi e dei progetti che sono messi in campo.
So this provision of the charter, Salvatore, underlines not only to be respected for the stage of programming, but again at the stage of the call for projects, the call for proposals, and the implementation of the projects selected.
Ma anche in tutte le altre fasi successivamente alla programmazione, quindi in fase di attuazione e di gestione dei progetti, in fase di monitoraggio, in fase di controllo e anche dopo che i vari progetti sono terminati.
So again, underlining the need to respect the charter in implementation, monitoring of the project, control of the project, evaluation and closure of the projects, the whole pipeline, let's say.
La Commissione ha demandato questi tipi di controlli per lo Stato membro Italia a delle figure particolari, denominati punti di contatto.
So these controls in Italy are done by point of contacts which have been nominated.
In caso di attività non conformi, il punto di contatto interviene tempestivamente.
And so if there is a breach of the charter, this point of contact has the task to intervene.
Quindi il ruolo e le funzioni, quindi prego di andare alla slide successiva, quindi il ruolo e le funzioni del punto di contatto sono quelle di vigilare sulla conformità dei programmi finanziati dai fondi e della loro attuazione rispetto alle rilevanti disposizioni della Carta.
So again, the point of contact needs to make sure that the program provisions are compliant to the charter, as you see from the slide.
Laddove si verificano dei reclami, individuare proprio la modalità di presentazione scritta appunto di questi eventuali reclami.
And the point of contact, where there are breaches of the charter, there should be a written complaint, and the point of contact will provide the necessary template, as you see number 2 of the slide, the templates for presenting a written complaint.
Predisporre un registro dei reclami secondo le modalità ritenute migliori, più opportune e che garantiscono la corretta identificazione del reclamo e tutte le successive registrazioni e la loro tracciabilità.
And there should be, of course, there is a foreseen in the program also a catalog, a log, so we can store all these complaints and then record them and to have an audit trail available of all the complaints.
Esaminare tutti i reclami e verificare se il reclamo è da attribuire al punto di contatto o se è diciamo da trasferirlo alle altre autorità competenti.
So the point of contact is the first step to investigate, to check whether the complaint need to be solved, addressed by the contact point, or whether it needs to be transferred to another body.
Ok, quindi se ci dovessero essere dei casi di non conformità, insieme con l'autorità di gestione supporta appunto l'autorità di gestione all'informativa periodica al comitato di sorveglianza.
So together with the managing authority, the point of contact then refers back in the monitoring committee about these cases.
Ok, se ci dovesse essere appunto dei casi di accertamento di non conformità della carta, il punto di contatto pone in essere alcune misure che possono essere idonee anche ad evitare un successivo caso analogo in futuro.
And of course, the point of contact needs to identify steps, procedures to avoid that the breach repeats itself in the future.
Ok, quindi prego di passare alla slide successiva. Per quanto riguarda la gestione del reclamo, diciamo, i punti sono ben determinati e quindi, come dicevo prima, c'è una registrazione di ogni reclamo all'interno di un registro.
There is, you can see on the slide the steps, the registration of the complaint in the complaint register.
Ok,
Identification code, correct?
Perfetto. Viene istruita appunto un'istruttoria del reclamo e subito il punto di contatto prende in carico la segnalazione sulla violazione della carta.
Exactly. So there is a procedure, a complaint investigation, and the point of contact then takes up the examination of the case.
C'è da dire che io sono punto di contatto per quanto riguarda il Fondo Sociale Europeo e quindi mi devo occupare solo di verifiche di violazione della carta rispetto al Fondo Sociale Europeo. Se ci sono delle altre violazioni, come ho detto prima, queste non devono essere lavorate da me, ma devono essere trasferite agli altri organi competenti.
So we have a point of contact in Regione Lazio for each program. So for the ESF, it's Salvatore. For the RDF, it's somebody else. So if Salvatore gets a complaint on the breach of the charter, which is not within the ESF program, he needs to transfer that to the other program contact point.
E se la segnalazione che è pervenuta risulta non valida o infondata, il punto di contatto comunque informa l'autorità di gestione che c'è stata questa diciamo, richiesta e dà una comunicazione scritta circa l'esito appunto dell'istruttoria al soggetto che ha richiesto.
So even if the case does not breach the charter, then anyway, Salvatore, the point of contact, will give a feedback to the managing authority and to the beneficiary about the conclusion of the point of contact.
Se invece la natura del reclamo è effettiva, il punto di contatto provvede a mettersi in relazione con l'autorità di gestione, deve adottare le necessarie misure per poter andare a correggere questo tipo di violazione.
So if the complaint is founded, well-founded, then the point of contact will take it up with the managing authority to ensure the follow-up, indeed.
E immediatamente informa il comitato di sorveglianza.
And then there is a transfer of information to the monitoring committee.
Se l'autorità di gestione, in questo caso della Regione Lazio, ritiene non opportuno l'intervento del punto di contatto al fine di modificare e correggere alcune violazioni che sono effettivamente, che ci sono effettivamente, il punto di contatto può direttamente esporre la propria rimostranza direttamente alla Corte di Giustizia europea.
Okay. So if the point of contact can also complain directly to the European Court of Justice when the monitoring committee refuses or is of a different opinion. So the point of contact can also take it up at a higher level, let's say.
Ok, se possiamo passare alla slide successiva. appunto il punto di contatto effettua le verifiche necessarie per il rispetto della carta dell'attuazione dei programmi, riceve e istruisce gli eventuali reclami e riferisce al comitato di sorveglianza. Quindi il ruolo del punto di contatto è proprio quello di andare a ricevere delle segnalazioni, rimandarle all'autorità di gestione, verificare la natura della segnalazione, intervenire nei casi che vi ho detto precedentemente.
You see here on the slide the task of the point of contact, conducting the checks on the compliance or not, the founded or not complaint on the charter, investigating it, and then referring back to the monitoring committee and to the managing authority. As you see from the slide, there is one for the ESF, as we said, and one for the ERDF.
La Regione Lazio ha deciso di nominare 2 punti di contatto, hanno, diciamo, è una decisione appunto della Regione Lazio, quindi uno per il fondo sociale, uno è per il FSE e l'altro è per il FESR. Altre regioni hanno magari messo diciamo il punto di contatto per tutta la tipologia dei fondi.
Okay, so other regions, so this is a decision of the Regione Lazio to have 2 point of contacts, but other Italian regions have chosen to have only 1 point of contact for both ERDF and the ESF programs.
Prego di passare alla slide successiva. Avevo detto appunto che ero io il punto di contatto e che questo punto di contatto si relaziona sia con l'altro punto di contatto della Regione Lazio, ma con tutti gli altri presenti all'interno del territorio nazionale.
So the point of contact of the regions in Italy on the charter then not only coordinates with the ERDF point of contact of its own regions, but with all the other regions in Italy.
Proprio per far sì che si costituisca una rete e uno scambio di informazioni per le eventuali segnalazioni che ci vengono proposte proprio a livello di territorialità nazionale.
To ensure that there is a flow of information and exchange between all the regions on the cases.
Per essere punto di contatto, la Commissione europea ha voluto fermamente che tutte le persone dovevano frequentare un corso di alta formazione per il rispetto della Carta dei diritti fondamentali come condizione abilitante nell'ambito dell'attuazione dei programmi della politica di coesione 21-27.
So the Commission asked the Italian point of contact on the charter to follow a training that you can see here on the right part of the slide, organized by the Italian School of Public Administration on the charter, as a compulsory training.
Ok, e questo corso è stato organizzato dalla Scuola Nazionale dell'Amministrazione in collaborazione con il Dipartimento per le Politiche di Coesione e per il Sud.
This course has been organized with the Department of Structural Funds Cohesion at national level.
Ok, se possiamo passare alla slide successiva. Al momento, diciamo, le attività realizzate che abbiamo fatto al momento, sicuramente è stata quella del coinvolgimento del punto di contatto nei criteri di selezione delle operazioni del Fondo Sociale Europeo.
So the point of contact was involved in the decision of and selecting the criteria for selecting projects, involving that procedure to define the selection criteria.
Quindi in fase proprio di programmazione c'è anche l'intervento appunto del punto di contatto.
Okay. Good in this programming stage of deciding the criteria of selection of projects.
Poi abbiamo creato uno spazio dedicato all'interno del sito istituzionale del programma FSE che è di facile individuazione.
So la Regione Lazio has also a specific part of its website dedicated to the charter, as you can see the link on the slide on the second column.
Abbiamo definito una procedura per la presa in carico dei trattamenti, dei casi di segnalazioni o di reclami.
There is a procedure then has been decided in Regione to how to carry out these checks on the complaints.
E abbiamo definito un modulo per la segnalazione di eventuali reclami. Questo modulo, è importante dire che è un modulo identico, uguale per tutti i punti di contatto in Italia.
The template of the complaint form is the same for all the point of contact, all the programs in Italy. So there is an homogeneous approach.
E la modalità di segnalazione è la medesima per tutti i punti di contatto.
And the procedure to complain is the same as well.
Quindi utilizzando un indirizzo mail e utilizzando anche una PEC.
It's with an email and with a certified email as well.
Al momento, sono 2 anni che comunque adesso è presente all'interno della regione il punto di contatto, non ci sono state segnalazioni o reclami sul mancato rispetto della carta.
In 2 years of operation, there have been no cases of complaint so far in 2 years.
Abbiamo avuto solo delle segnalazioni che alla fine abbiamo risolto prima appunto di una segnalazione ufficiale.
So as Salvatore explains, there have been 2 cases, but these 2 cases have been resolved before a lodging of a complaint. So before the lodging of the complaint, the Salvatore and the managing authorities have addressed the issues of these 2 cases preventively.
Per fare un breve esempio, abbiamo avuto un reclamo da parte di una famiglia brasiliana.
There was a case, yes, go ahead, bye.
No, scusa, vai, dillo tu.
An example, there was a case Salvador dealt with in his ESF program of a Brazilian family
che aveva la figlia minore venuta in Italia a settembre per un ricongiungimento familiare.
Of which the daughter came to Italy in September to reconnect with the family.
E non aveva portato i titoli di studio che aveva in Brasile.
And didn't bring with her along the educational diploma that she had received in Brazil.
E la scuola italiana, non avendo a disposizione il titolo cartaceo, non voleva iscrivere la ragazza.
And the school did not having the certificate of the Brazilian daughter of the school did not want to enroll her in the school.
La ragazza ha contattato un ente italiano chiamato Cimea, che è che fa ricongiungimento appunto dei titoli e riconoscimento dei titoli.
So they contacted to resolve the case this body that recognized the mutual recognition of diplomas.
Il riconoscimento non è immediato, ma ci vogliono un paio di mesi, 2 o 3 mesi per avere appunto questo riconoscimento.
So the recognition is not automatic, not immediate, so it takes a few months to obtain this.
Si rischiava che la ragazza in obbligo di istruzione doveva rimanere a casa per 3 mesi.
So there was a risk that she had to stay at home for 3 months.
Abbiamo intimato la scuola a prendere la ragazza, perché il corso durava 2 anni, quindi aveva tutto il tempo per poter dimostrare i titoli che aveva comunque preso in Brasile.
So the point of contact intervened to ask the school to still enroll her, even if she didn't have the paper from Brazil. The course was for 2 years, so she had ample time to provide the evidence within the 2 years. So
quindi è stato risolto in questo modo.
And it was resolved before the complaint was formalized in the template. Dobbiamo andare a chiusura adesso, Salvatore.
Ok, perfetto. Bene, allora io avrei terminato. Ringrazio tutti della pazienza. Speriamo che comunque la traduzione abbia comunque colpito il segno e grazie mille.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. First, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this meeting. For me, it's an honor to can explain about our experience in Andalusia, in the south of Spain. I will share my presentation. I think it's okay.
Yes,
Very good.
perfect.
Thank you, Pilar.
Okay, thank you. I will go to explain the European Agricultural Funds and the gender perspective in Andalusia. Why is important? For the European Union, it's very important because it's one of the fundamental values in the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. Speak about to promote equality between men and women in all the activities of the European Union. The Commission has committed to implementing gender mainstreaming, and the European Parliament and the Council have stressed the need for the European Union to deliver on its high-level commitments on gender mainstreaming. When the negotiating starts for the multi-annual financial framework from 2021 to 2027, the three institutions, the three Commission, Council, and Parliament, agreed on the importance of consider gender equality in European Union budgeting. For this, the Commission must do three things: develop a robust system for tracking funds allocated and used to support gender equality, report annually the results in terms of gender equality, and consider proposing a percentage of the European Union budget to be used to support gender equality. So it's very important for the European Union, that thing. And the European Union have different organisms to work about gender perspective. We have an agency, European Institute for Gender Equality, since 2010, a lot of time with the agency. The Commission is working about that since 1996, so it's a lot of time. Well, I will start with the situation in Andalusia. We work very hard to improve the situation of the women in the region, but nowadays the situation is not perfect. We have different situation between men and women. For instance, only a few dates to understand the situation. The participation in the labor market is not the same. For instance, male employment rate is higher than female, but the unemployment, the female rate is is lower than male rate, you can see. The most intense gender gap occurs in the group of 45 to 54 years with a difference of each 20 points. It's very relevant. A higher proportion of women are among those who work fewer hours, mainly due to their greater dedication to caregiving. Self-employment women are lower than men. In men represent 63% and women only 36%. In agriculture, ownership of farming are very lower, only 15%, while male ownership are 84%. It's very relevant and significant the employment in agriculture. You can see the difference between Andalusia in green color, Spain in red color, and European Union. So agriculture is very important nowadays because we have 8% person employed in this sector here in Andalusia. And the beneficiaries of aid of a common agriculture policy are a lot of individuals, people, and there are differences in between men and women. You can see over there. But during the decade analyzed, the last one, the gender gap has narrowed, but each 5% points in this time. So I think that we are improved the situation in this sector. What are our tools in Andalusia for incorporation of the gender perspective? Well, the first, we have a lot of experience, more than 20 years, is the preparation of the budgets with a gender perspective. This is really important because it's an effective strategy for public policies to address gender things in the different areas of social, political, and economic life previously identified and diagnosed, and to direct public research to achieve equality between women and men. And we have a very important institute here in Andalusia that is called the Andalusian Women's Institute. It's created as an organization responsible for promoting the conditions for real and effective equality between men and women, making possible the participation and presence of the women in political, economic, cultural, and social life. And nowadays we have a law that is called Statute of Rural and Maritime Women of Andalusia, with the aim of establishing mechanisms for effective equality of opportunity between women and men in this sector. It's important to know that it's a competence exclusive of the region. We have law to national level, but we have competence at level regional to make this. What is this law? Promotes the professional recognition in professional, social, economical, and political rights, include the necessary measures to achieve equal treatment and opportunities for women and men in the agriculture and fishery sector, as well as to incorporate the gender perspective in all areas of the sector. With this law, Andalusia anticipates the recommendation contained in the motion for a resolution of the European Parliament on women and their role in rural areas, so it's very important for us. We have different European agriculture and fisheries funds. Nowadays, we have two programs. We have one program to region level from 2014 to 2022. And nowadays we have a national program to the period of 23 for 2027. In this program, we have direct payments from FEAGA and rural development with a fund is called FEADER. We have a fund for fisheries. Nowadays, we have in the 2021 and 2022 is articulated through operational program to level national level. What is our experience in these funds? Well, in the initial negotiations before 2023, all the people thought about young people and the promotion of the women's participation in the agri-food sector. That was the main objectives of the policy. For the first time, women's associations are included in the Regional Monitoring Committee. That is very important to participate, to take part of the policy. And this is the first time in 2023 to 2027. And we are very happy with this decision. We have two laws to region level to effective equality of women and men and to promotion of gender equality in Andalusia. We have a strategic planning. Nowadays, we have a second plan for equal opportunities between women and men in agriculture, fishing, and environment activity in Andalusia. We have continuous training of personnel. We have several aid lines. We speak about this now, and we have an initiative that is very important. We speak about this now. Besides, is the first time that in the European Reglement have a strategic objective that speak about that theme. Promote employment, growth, gender equality, including women's participation on agriculture, social inclusion, and local development in rural areas. This is fundamental to establish interventions and aids measure to reduce the gap between men and female. You can see that we have the recommendations of the Commission speak about the needs of women in the sector, must be thinking For this, we have in our measures specific interventions for women. For instance, we have the incorporation of young women with important 15 million euros for the incorporation of the young women in the activity. We have eligibility conditions, especially designed for women. We have different aid intensities or unit amount for women. We prioritize women in the selection criteria for aid. And in direct payments, we have additional payments for young people and for women people. We especially designed interventions to implement gender equality. We have, I said before, but we have in the committee include as member the women's associations, the main women's association. Then they can speak and they can they have the opportunity to share ideas and to take part of the decisions and everything. We prioritize in all possible measures in investment for the modernization and improvement of agriculture holdings, transformation, all the aids that we have here in Andalusia. I think I said before, in the local action groups, we make that these entities have incorporation in the organization, quality measures, incorporate women's associations, other measures. The strategy for that local action group must be incorporated for the diagnosis, the objectives, everything, the budget, everything, transversal way. And with a 20% budget must contribute to equality. With the featuring funds is the same. We have measured to improve the visibility and improve their work. We support their associations, the main associations toward gender perspective. We promote women's participation in the commitment and in the economic, political, and socio-cultural life of fishing communities. And that is all, only 5 conclusions. The first one, I think the Commission is committed to mainstreaming gender issues through the European Union budget and considers that the new gender equality strategy, together with the new multi-annual financial framework and the accompanying interinstitutional agreement, provides an appropriate framework for this. In the case of Spain, this also occurs at the level of strategic plans. The gender gaps in this sector are notable, but we are in privileged positions to incorporate the gender perspective in the strategic planning execution of European funds in Andalusia, since it has been taken into account from the design stage. Result must be analyzed, but I think that the position is very good. The accumulated experience and the challenges that have been successfully overcome are the basis for the future success. Strategic planning with a gender perspective is essential to able to apply specific policies and to able to carry out proper monitoring, seeing the necessary indicators and forcings. The last one, it is essential to have the participation of the women and their associations in strategic planning or program for the policy monitoring. Thank you very much. I think that is all.
Cesare, we hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Dzień dobry. Good afternoon, everyone. So I was invited to speak very briefly to present you what we did in Poland. For this handbook, I was working in capacity of an officer in the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights in Poland, so the Polish Ombudsman. And the idea of writing this handbook came from the Ministry of EU Funds, because they found with the people working especially in the lower ranks of administration in Poland, in implementing and managing authorities in Poland, that they are somehow lost and they have many questions that they need to answer. So this is not a scientific handbook, or it was not designed as such. Of course, it has two parts, so maybe if you could scroll down to the list of contents, it has two chapters. So the chapter 1 is maybe more theoretical, but it was, so as I said, we had several focus group discussions with people from regional authorities and the central authorities, so the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy. And we collected questions that they had for us. So there are areas that we did not cover and that probably that did not emerge in our discussions, and that probably in other countries would be more interesting for you. Especially for us, what was interesting was this conditionality mechanism, because as you know, Poland was kind of threatened by the use of it. So it was there was a lot of questions about this conditionality. But as I said, the idea of handbook was somehow to explain in simple words, and we employed a person who is not a lawyer to read it after us, so that it would be more understandable and with use of a plain language, not only for lawyers. And it answers, like basic questions. You can see some of the titles of the subchapters here. So basically it covers questions such as who is obliged to comply with the charter, in which situations member states authorities are obliged to comply or not, because there are areas that are not covered by the charter. But in the area of EU funds, it is mostly the case that we apply the charter. So let's say the first part is more theoretical. So that is the chapter 1. And then we have the chapter 2, which is really designed as something very practical for two kinds of uses. So we wanted it to be, firstly, some kind of self-help tool for people working with EU funds. So you can use it on your own if you have some doubts about a specific question. And the chapter covers every right and freedom from the chapter separately. So you have every article. I will explain the order of the articles that are in the chapter in a few seconds. So you can check every specific question that you have regarding any right that you might have. And there is also, we designed something which we call a checklist, so that you can go through some basic questions to know if there is a possibility that there was a violation or not of the charter in your case. So that is one thing. And the second thing is that we wanted to be a handbook to use for training purposes. So if you organize trainings for people working with EU funds in Slovenia, I would be glad if you use it, and you are free to use it. It's free of charge completely. And also, if you have any kind of feedback to me, you can reach to me. I will show you, or I will write to you in my chat my email address. So then to maybe go through the specific rights. As you see here, there is something. Could you go to the page number 61, maybe? So yes, as you see here, we have divided all the rights from the chapter, so it will not be like we don't go through the numbers in this order. We have selected 3 types of rights, and we named them red flags, yellow flags, and gray flags. And this is based on our experience in the Office of the Commissioner of Human Rights, where we work with cases concerning EU funds, and that they represent the rights that we find are most frequently violated. So there is the higher risk that it might be violated. So if you don't have time to go through all the rights, then you can at least see through these red flags. If you have some more time, then you can go through yellow flags. They are less frequently violated, and then the gray flags. Of course, we don't have any legally based reasoning for that, because every right and freedom from the chapter should be equally protected. But this is, like the practice shows that really, like this example of the right to respect for private and family life, this is something which is very, very, very frequently questioned, or in the end, we have found violation in the cases that were presented to us in the individual complaints. The same, for example, with the right to good administration. And then to briefly say to you how it is designed. So for every right, you have, like this, the first part, which says to you what is protected, in, like, to speak in more on more concrete terms. So for example, that it protects private relations, identity, sexuality, inviolability of home, etc., etc. Then you have some questions that represent the case law of the Court of Justice and the case law of the European Court of Human Rights. So we selected the most basic judgments based on this right or freedom, on this given right or freedom, and what problem they represent. So for example, was there a limitation of the ability to make life decisions freely, including those concerning professional life or lifestyle? So for example, if you find that in your case, your regulation or your decision could restrict such possibility to choose freely your occupation, then it very probably violates Article 7. And then the last one is to give you, because and this is something which was really requested by the people working in managing authorities, that they would like to have some, like picture of a violation, so that they could not see or learn it only in abstract terms, but also to have example of a violation. And unfortunately, we don't have case law of the Court of Justice of violation of the Charter in the context of EU funds for every right or freedom covered in the Charter. Maybe it is good, or maybe it only represents the fact that not every problem comes to the Court of Justice. But we don't, so as I said, we don't have the case law for all of them. So some of the examples are invented by us, but with analogy to the judgments of Court of Justice or the Strasbourg Court, but out of the context of EU funds. Yes, you will find examples for every right. And then there are also parts of this handbook which, when we propose, for example, how we distinguish between implementation of EU funds, so making individual decisions, designing your internal regulations, so more of a legislating work, and then the control of the implementation of EU funds, so these 3 contexts. And for each of them, we have proposed how such assessment of a possible Charter violation could look like, with like a procedure proposed by us. So you can find it to at the end of this handbook. So should you have any questions, more questions, because I would not like to take more time. Should you have any questions, you can write to me. I will quickly write my email in the chat. This is something that, of course, the project is over now, but I know that the Fundamental Rights Agency is negotiating another project with the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights. So this is like a work in progress. We can still improve the handbook. We can make changes in it. We can add things. We can amend things. So should you have any questions, I'm speaking on behalf of us three as authors, because we were free. We are still open to any kind of feedback that you would like to have, positive or negative.
Thank you very much, Cesare, for this. I think it's a very interesting example. Cesare is the only handbook I've seen or found that takes the charter and then puts it in the context of the European funds. So it's very interesting. I think it will be very useful for the... Okay, so let me conclude just with a few examples, again, concrete examples of the charter. This is an example, actually, Salvatore, this is maybe it's not from your program, maybe because it's from the, I think it's from the PON Scuola. So, but it's still an Italian project. You can see here in Italy, they basically what they did, they launched modules on the cittadinanza europea, on the European citizenship. So they invented the schools to develop modules to explain the charter to the children, to the school pupils. Very interesting. So we are speaking about different target groups, women, Roma population, but think about children at school that should know about the charter. And this is an example. They were recruiting tutors through the structural funds in these schools to develop this culture of the rights and the charter early on with the children. I think it's very important to intervene as early as possible. This is another picture I took myself, actually, in Wrocław. Actually, Cesare, it was a Wrocław. I went around and I bumped into a campaign. Again, this is examples of breaking the stereotypes against the Roma population. And this is the kind of active, let's say, campaign to promote integration in the labor market, which is very important. Another example is this one. This was actually a project submitted to the European program called Progress. It's a DG Employment direct program, Hungarian, so another country which had the issues with the EU on rule of law. And basically, the Hungarian ministry is basically, they got the project from the European Commission, from Progress. They got nearly 500,000 euro to promote gender equality, mainstreaming in national policies. But at the end, with the money, the Hungarian ministry was basically doing its own campaign against abortion. So, of course, when this came up, basically the commissioner at the time, Vivian Reding, had to intervene that this is not in line with the project proposals, and they had to stop this campaign without further delay, as you see here. So all the posters of the project were removed, but of course the Hungarian, they went ahead with their own funds, but without the European fund. These are some examples of concrete cases of breach of the Charter of Fundamental Rights and the intervention directive, but this was in the direct management of the budget. Maybe a last example is a project we have in EIPA, and we have in EIPA, we have an offices in Luxembourg, and our Luxembourg colleagues have actually launched together with a company called Passerelle. They have launched a project called Charter Op to upgrade fundamental rights know-how in Luxembourg. As you know, Luxembourg is also a country full of immigrants from Portugal, Italy, from different nationalities. So the labor force is very diverse. And in this project, they are doing a lot of capacity building, trainings. There is a checklist. We can share that, Lucrezia, in the chat, the checklist, the tools we have, or the link to the project. It's a very interesting activities they're doing. Again, a lot of capacity explaining the charter cases. There is a checklist, there is a catalog, a newsletter as well, to which you can register for free. Lots of tools available. Finally, the Bulgarians. We are in contact with the Bulgarian Managing Authority. And Natasha, you see here, this is the Bulgarian catalog 2025 of the Managing Authority of Bulgaria for all the actors in the structural funds. And they have a permanent module on the charter. So you can see there the Charter of Fundamental Rights and its observance in the implementation of the structural funds. This is an obligatory module for all the managers of structural funds in Bulgaria. It's on the permanent, every year they repropose this. So it's not only for the contact points like we had in Italy, but for all the managers to know a little bit more about the charter. So my conclusion is these slides. I have a list of do's and don'ts on the charters, which can maybe help what to do and what not to do. So for sure, what we can do more is to increase awareness in management structures and the beneficiaries. As Salvatore said, to solve issues before a complaint is lodged. So we need a proactive approach, preventive rather than punitive approach, very important. Some of our speakers also shared the importance to involve the relevant stakeholders. The example of Andalusia, the Women Association, is an example. The focal points, to have a point of contact, ERDF, ESF for cooperation and coordination. The Lazio region example is very important. The point Cesare mentioned about risk assessment, so identification within the charter rights and principle, those that are more relevant for your programs, for your structures, for your steps, to identify and try to understand. You cannot maybe cover all the charter, but focus on those that are more at risk in your program. So to do kind of a risk assessment and to keep it very practical. What we should not be doing on the right, concluding that all is okay if there are very few complaints. As we said, the fact that there are no complaints doesn't mean that there are no issues. As we said, they might be solved before, so that's also okay. We cannot assume that cohesion structural funds manager know about the charter and that we are all lawyers. So managers are managers. So we have to manage programs. We are not experts in the charter. So we need for sure to have tools like very practical that are speaking, like Cesare said, in a jargon that is understandable for managers, for beneficiaries, and we need to support beneficiaries a lot. And of course, we cannot rely only on a beneficiary signing a declaration or a self-declaration that they comply with the charter. It's like we have with the de minimis self-declaration. We also rely on self-declaration of beneficiaries that they comply, but this is not sufficient. We need to make sure that they actually understand the charter, and they do, and they modify, and they correct their project in case the project deviates or carries out activities are in contrast with the charter. So this is a little bit a list of do's and don'ts that I would have prepared for you to conclude the seminar. So thank you very much.